All right. Next slide, please.
Sure.
All right, folks. So we're here today to do, and we thank you for being here. Hopefully, some people are actually very depressing and talk about it's not too far till the beginning of the school year. To me, that's an ultimately depressing thought. So how about this? Does this sound better? Thank you for all coming right in the middle of the summer. How about that? Is that a better? That's a better, I think, thing here. But the people, myself, I'm here, Steve Armstrong, social studies consultant for the Connecticut State Department of Ed. Nicole Jones, who has done all of the legwork of sending out links and is the Humanities and Arts project manager. And Malik, if you would be gracious enough to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Malik Champlain. I'm the Racial Equity and Social Justice Educational Consultant with CERC, known as the State Education Resource Center. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks. And the three of us are the people that are, I would use this word very lightly, running this project. But we're coordinating with you and with everybody on getting this off the ground. Today's session is the second session on the unwrapping of the standards. The next session we will do will be on inquiry instruction, and more than just how to do inquiry, but how to embed inquiry into a curriculum. So this is not going to be another session on here's how you do an inquiry activity, because I think we've done that. But how do we embed inquiry into curriculum? That's going to be what we're talking about for the next, that will be the next session. And by the way, just as a side note, if this has any interest to you, the new Connecticut State Social Studies Frameworks will be going to the State Board of Education at their at their September meeting. And hopefully they will be approved then, and then we can take further steps after that. But that's the plan as we speak now. So before we get going, if you have, does anyone have questions on anything right now? Okay, I would have no idea how to answer them, but it's always good to ask the question, right? So to start off today, could everybody just kindly introduce yourself, and if you would be gracious enough to give us your name, where you work, what do you do, and also Nicole's good on this, far better than I am on these little these little teaser questions to start us off. And the question that Nicole wanted to ask you, I will not claim to be imaginative enough to think this up myself. This was Nicole that thought this up, is what is your favorite historical book or movie? So yes. Nicole, how about we start off, we know who you are, but could you answer that last question for you? What's your favorite historical book or movie?
My favorite historical book or movie? I have a few. I want to say, the Django, but I don't think it's necessarily a historical movie, but I thought it was a very compelling movie. But of course, I love the MLK movie. I think that's better. That's a better way to answer that question.
Malik, how about you? What's your favorite historical book or movie?
I'm gonna say with movie. I'm gonna go with the story of Solomon Northup and 12 Years a Slave.
Good choice. Sam, how about you? Introduce
sure.
your.
Yeah, Samantha Tondro, you can call me Sam. I work for the Mohegan Tribe. I'm a director of curriculum and instruction. My brain goes back to my 4th grade classroom, and my favorite historical fiction book to teach with was Number the Stars.
Ah.
Love it.
Becky, how about you?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Gomez. I am the Director of Education and Recreation for the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation. As an adult, my favorite historical book is Moby Dick. As a teacher, I loved teaching Animal Farm and Night.
Wonderful.
Nice.
We have a few
Any-
in the chat.
Oh, we're gonna have. Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, we have some in the chat, and then we'll get started. But we just
We
wanted
gotta.
to.
We're still introducing people.
Okay.
Nicole, don't. We're still introducing people here. Who's
Just
next?
a little run out of time. There's some in the chat, Steve. I can read them to you.
Okay, they don't want to. These people. Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Natalie Giza says she's a 7th grade social studies teacher, and Sam already wrote hers in the chat. Brent gave his introductions, and I see Leadership by Doris Carnes Goodwin. Favorite historical book, Moby Dick from Rebecca. And Night. We have another Night person, Lisa Cleveland, Hidden Figures. Another
Dennis.
Moby Dick.
Dennis, how about you?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, hi Steve. So I'm Dennis Culleton, the Executive Director of the Witness Stones Project and a retired 8th grade social studies teacher and dear friend of Brent Charpentier. And
what's up, buddy?
Yeah, and my favorite movie, as you know, and Brett could have told you this, but my favorite movie to show in the classroom was Glory. I just love that movie for so many reasons.
Wonderful.
Greg, did you speak yet? Greg?
No, I haven't. I did write it down.
No.
It's kind of a long one for me because I think there's a lot of well-written ones. Let's see here. I put down Johnny Tremaine.
You know what? I friggin' remember Johnny Tremaine. That's a great book.
Yeah, I love Gone with the Wind, but I'm very conflicted about it as I've gotten older. I personally think they need to do a remake of it, but from the perspective of Mammy. That would be more interesting for me. Gosh, hard to say. Maybe Gandhi?
Wonderful.
Ben-Hur, which is not exactly historically accurate, but still. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else that hasn't introduced themselves?
I can go. I'm Jenny Hicula Diaz. I also go by JHD. I use they and she pronouns. I'm the Connecticut Council for the Social Studies Professional Learning Coordinator. And this is really hard to pick one, but I recently reread We Still Here, Pandemic, Policing, Protest, and Possibility by Mark Lamont Hill. It's not like, it's recent history, right? It was published in like 2020, but it's a great read if you've never read it.
Thank you. Jim
Wonderful.
Clifford.
Sorry, can you say the title again? What was the title?
I can put it in the chat if that's easier.
That'd be
It's
good.
called We
That's
Still Here, Pandemic, Policing, Protest, and Possibility.
You could put it in the chat, Jenny, too, would be great. Jim Clifford?
Yes, hi, everybody. Jim Clifford here. It's good to join you again. I'm gathering you're talking about favorite book and favorite movie. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
just identify what you do, like school
Oh,
or whatever
sure.
you're doing.
Sure. So I was a classroom social studies high school teacher for 27 years, mostly history and psychology. And I now have a nonprofit called Exploring Climate. And I've been working with climate educators in Vermont, New York, New Jersey, Wisconsin, Oregon, etc. Integrating climate into social studies. And my favorite book was a book you may not have read. It's called Bus Ride to Justice. It was written by Fred Gray, who was the attorney at age 25 for Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. And he proceeded to do over 20 landmark civil rights cases, but he never sought the spotlight. I had a chance to meet him in Alabama and interview him briefly. Amazing guy, still practicing law in his late 80s.
Thank you.
Liz Mancini.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm Liz. I am the department chair and social studies teacher for Middletown Public Schools. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks recently. So recent ones that I thought were really good, Killers of the Flower Moon, which I just finished a couple weeks ago. That was fantastic. Writers Come Out at Night, which was a history of the corruption within the Oakland Police Department. That was fantastic.
Liz,
Wonderful.
there's a Scorsese movie, you probably know this, coming up about your first choice very soon.
Yes, yeah.
You know, Ed Dorgan?
Mm-hmm.
Ed, where are you?
Do you see me? Yep.
Yeah. Identify yourself in a book, your favorite historical book or movie.
I'm not sure about a historical book. I was just finished reading something about in the White House. For those that for African Americans who visited Lincoln it was for Gilda Lehrman type of workshop this summer. So that's been interesting. And I am a middle school teacher in Burlington, Connecticut.
I think Jenny, Jenny, you're the CCSS coordinator. Maybe we could have a webinar sometime soon on the controversy over the movie Barbie, but that would be a completely different thing. So there is a controversy, by the way, if you haven't followed it, over the movie Barbie, but we'll do that another day. Sorry, Nicole, I told you I wouldn't ramble on, and I'm doing exactly that. So go ahead and take it away.
Not a problem. We definitely want to acknowledge who's in the room today. And as we get going in this work, we probably won't have you all introduce yourself every single time, but we definitely wanted to cultivate acknowledging everyone that is here. So take us away, Malik.
Okay, great. Looking at our agenda, we have 3 things on our list. The first one is to review the protocol for unwrapping standards. Second, we will evaluate and assess a sample graphic organizer. And third, we will have breakouts into grade level groups to practice unwrapping your assigned standards.
Yes, thank you so much, Malik. As always, we are building a learning environment in a virtual space. So we'd love for you to keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking. Keep your video on when life allows it. We are really enjoying seeing every one of your faces today. Use the chat to ask questions to keep the conversation going, or use the raise hand feature to share your thinking. And as always, use the emotion icons to share your feelings or thinking. We really appreciate it. All right, so the last time we met, we were able to dive a little bit into the unwrapping the standards protocol. We also talked a little bit about the history and the background and the structure of the new social studies framework. We want to take a moment to check in. So which picture best describes how you approach the unwrapping protocol? You can put this in the chat. So are you a 1? Are you a 2? Are you a 3? Or are you a 4? Right, we got some 2s and 3s here. I'm multitasking right now because some people need to be resent the link. So if you see me looking away, that's what I'm doing, adding people to the invite. Wow, so we got some 2s and 3s. Okay. So it looks like some of us jumped in, while others, we just dipped our toe in the water a little bit. But that's okay, because that's why we're here. So thank you so much for allowing us to check in with you. Before we,
Could I ask something, Nicole, of these
sure.
fine folks? Could somebody that gave it a 4, a 3 or a 4, could you give us, how is it? Have you done this before? Is this something you've done in your school? Could somebody that's a 3 or a 4 just very briefly talk about that? Are there any 3? Look,
Let me take a look, because I was not looking at the chat. Just give me one moment. So Dennis gave it a 3, Jim gave it a 3. Greg was about between a 2 and a 3. And so that's what I was just going to ask before we
Okay,
actually
Jim-
dive into the presentation for some
Jim-
folks to share.
Jim Clifford, you were raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Although I did not attend the session where the information was presented, I went through the slides. And as Steve knows, I was on the steering committee and a writer for the standards. So I'm familiar with them, for the last year and a half. What I wanted to share was how I recently completed 2 workshops one in New York and one in Vermont. And I was talking with educators up there about how Connecticut is revising its social studies standards and really bringing it into the 21st century in so many areas. And some states haven't done that yet. And so I talked about briefly how standards drive the curriculum, and they provide not only the framework from the C3, but most recently content standards, so that now I feel that teachers will be much better equipped to work in developing not just the pedagogy, but also the content, and covering in a much more diverse and inclusive way than we've done before, including not only representation, but also agency. So.
I would just very briefly say that for those of you, thank you, Jim. For those of you that are ones, don't worry about it. That this is actually, once you get it down, is not a difficult process. So if you're new to this, if you've never done it before, don't worry, we'll get you there.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Steve.
All right, looking at what we have next is the 3-step process. Just a quick little recap around, talking about unwrapping the standards. And we're just saying unwrapping the standards, meaning to identify concepts and skills found in both the standards and the indicators. We're talking, like the learning outcomes, specific grade learning outcomes. Unwrapping the standards means to determine exactly what the students need to know, along the idea of knowing concepts and content, being able to do the skill, but also the context of what educators are teaching our students, and those conceptual skills that we want them to have.
Absolutely.
So with that, we have this process, and our 3-step process is really going to be speaking to, first, select your standards to unwrap. Second, we're going to underline, the underlined nouns and circle verbs. And then lastly, we will create a graphic organizer. And with that process, we would be able to move to our next slide and give you more of an example of that.
100%. Thank you so much, Malik. So just definitely recapping from the last time we met. This should be familiar to all of you. Teams is telling me to let everyone know that they're being recorded and transcribed. It keeps coming up. So you are being recorded and transcribed right now. Okay, thanks. So we are very familiar with this graphic organizer. We were introduced to this graphic organizer the last time we met, and hopefully each and every one of you have access to the files and or the folder that I created through Google. I did try to create it through OneDrive, and that was not successful. So when you have a moment, please take a look at the chat and you will see another link. And so in this graphic organizer, we are able to go through this 3-step process and also take it a little bit further. And so we went over the example last week, but we didn't necessarily take a deep dive. So this graphic organizer allows us to not only unwrap the standard, but talk about the knowledge targets, the doing targets, the big ideas, and the essential questions. We know that learning targets serve as an organized feature of learning that students will do. Doing targets lead students through the learning process and toward a criteria of success. And we know that with standards, the ultimate goal is for students to develop mastery. We hopefully with this graphic organizer, if you tried it out, our aim was to ensure that we think about the big ideas and how the standards are the foundation to provide a larger framework and structure of understanding for students. And additionally, the essential questions, thinking about how we can leverage standards to invite students into the learning environment and provoke discovery. So with that being said, we're going to assess and evaluate right now. We will go into a breakout group and you're going to access the grade 3 sample unwrapping standards graphic organizer. And you're going to add some suggestions to the graphic organizer if you can, if it's possible. And you're going to make some comments. So we hope that within this breakout group, you only focus on 2 standards because we don't have a lot of time for you to, obviously, if you want to look at more standards, you can. But in your breakout group, just focus on 2 standards and track those standards throughout the graphic organizer. Perhaps you want to evaluate how the learning targets and the doing targets are explicit about the nature of learning that students are expected to do and the nature of their success. When you're looking at the big ideas, you may want to consider, are the big ideas enduring, conceptual? Are they open-ended? And do they illustrate the standard being unwrapped? Can the big ideas also be seen from the educator's point of view as well as the student's point of view? Does it work well that way when you're looking at the sample? Do the big ideas promote inquiry? When you're looking at the essential questions on this document, you might want to think about or consider, do the questions stimulate student interest? Are they derived from this unwrapped standard? Do they help students formulate a response? Are they engaging? So these are some of the things that you might want to think about as you go into your breakout group and assess and evaluate. Do we have any questions right now before we go into the breakout group? I do see a few in the chat. So let me go there. This is a really great question, Jim. Jim said, for today's work, are we equating an essential question with a compelling question? And I would say yes. Yes, and perhaps no, because I do understand that there is some thought out there around the fact that essential questions aren't necessarily compelling questions. But what are your thoughts? Does anybody want to comment on that? Because in the document that we have to use for these units, it does not say compelling question. So I try to be consistent with using that same verbiage from the Universal Design Curricula Principles. But we definitely want to think about those questions being compelling. Anybody want to comment? Sure, Jim.
Hi, Nicole. Yeah, so
Yes.
my thought is, since we're using the C3 framework for the pedagogy, and that's in the standards that we've written, I think that would argue in favor of terming it a compelling question. 2 other reasons are that when I shifted from essential to compelling questions, I got the students' attention. because I said they've seen the word essential questions for years and they don't think something is necessarily essential, but they get the idea of something being compelling. It grabs you, you know, and I think and this relates to my third reason, if we're going to try to develop inquiry skills using mindful language like compelling is important. And also compelling is supported by the structure where we use supporting questions. And that's how I help students develop the inquiry skills. You know, I have them, once they get the supporting questions down, then as the year goes by, I would have them help me with develop the compelling question. So that's why I made the move some years ago, and I found it to work really well in the classroom with those who were using the C3 framework, which is at the core of our standards.
You're absolutely right. Steve, did you want to comment on this? Because you and I have had conversations about this as well.
Yeah, I think the word compelling questions is completely appropriate for any inquiry activity. You're completing compelling questions to start the inquiry. Now, Nicole, does the document that we're going to be using, does it essentially say, does it say essential questions?
It does. In the universal design template, it says essential questions. And so this is what we talked about when we were thinking about how we might want to ask if the social studies model curriculum template could be modified. Because right now we are all using the same template. Every content area that has created the model curriculum, science, English, math, have created that document, and that's the expectation. So, you know, earlier on when we were planning these meetings, Steve and I have had some conversations about the fact that it doesn't say, like, the template doesn't say compelling question, it says essential question. But we know, as Jim pointed out, that the C3 framework and inquiry is the anchor of social studies.
So I might suggest right now, I mean, and we could have a 2-hour linguistic discussion on the difference between the two words. But I think for right now, Jim's spot on that any inquiry that you're starting is a compelling question. That's the first stage. But how about if we may want to make the same move? But I think we've got to do some checking with some other folks before we can unilaterally say that that's what's going to happen in the curriculum document. I don't know that but we'll push for that, but I don't know that we can positively say that's going to happen right now.
Right. And that's where the companion document will come into place, Jim, is we're probably going to have to not double the work, but we will have to do some extensive work around not only leveraging the universal template that the CSDE is using for every content area, but adding in a companion document that speaks to inquiry and the C3 framework in the way that it should. And so we could talk more about that. But thank you so much for bringing that up. And we greatly appreciate your thoughts and comments. All right. So let's get into a breakout group. I'm going to do my very best. Hopefully you all have accessed the document. And again, you're going to choose 2 standards to track in that document. I'm just trying to figure out how I can get these breakout rooms started. So I am going to automatically assign people to a breakout room. So here we go. Before we go, everybody is able to access the document and the files in Google. Great.
So what we should be doing, Nicole, is could you say one more time what you'd like us to do with
Absolutely. So when you're looking at this sample, you're making suggestions, adding insight, thinking about the major components of an essential question or a big idea. You know, you want to think about if the standard was adequately unwrapped. If not, what would you add? What would you change? What would you delete? That sort of thing. I cannot. Someone's just said something in the chat. Give me 1 second. Okay, so Natalie, you are unable to access the Google Drive. I'm going to see how I can get you that document. I might just email it over to you just so you can look at it. And, or maybe when you get in your breakout group, you might be able to project it. But any other questions about what we're going to do for the next 8 minutes since we're running over time?
We're reviewing 2 standards and critiquing the way that they were unwrapped.
Correct. And adding where you see fit, some insight. Great. So here we go. Creating the rooms now. All right, here we go. Hi, Sarah. Oh. How are you, Jenny? Sorry, I was muted. I was like talking to you.
Oh, I got kicked out.
Okay.
I don't know what room I was assigned to, but I tried to join the room. Oh, okay. I have a join the room button now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, sorry about that.
No worries. Teams has just been acting a little weird today. Is it allowing you to go back to the room you were in?
No.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm gonna assign you to this one. Dennis.
Yeah.
I know I was looking at your name and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out. It says that you're in room 4,
Yeah, I just
but I,
don't have access. You know,
yeah, okay, so let's do room 4. But it won't let me.
it's like I came up double in room 4.
Yeah.
I tried to get rid of one and it didn't work. So.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
Maybe it will assign you now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oops.
Outstanding.
Sorry.
So that's my thought. Oh, are we out of it?
Yes, we are.
Oh.
I'm sorry to cut you all out of all the fun that I'm sure you were having in your breakout group. But want to hear your feedback. I know a few of you made some comments on the document. Again, this was intended to kind of get our wheels turning a little bit, maybe agitate some of you, who knows? But anyone want to talk a little bit about a standard that their breakout group evaluated and assessed? Was it excellent? Was it good? Was it poor? Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you. I would say that we actually spent the bulk of our time not looking at one particular standard, but kind of talking about our thoughts in regards to the verbs used. And then also just the importance of context and understanding what students are doing in grades, especially prior to whatever grade you're assigned. Because as we all know, it is impossible in social studies to analyze without proper knowledge being built first. And so as an example, we were looking at Civics 6B, and the verb chosen there was describe ways in which families and communities in the United States were organized to promote mutual benefit and address challenges. And we were naming that describe is important, but when we want to apply historical thinking skills, comparison might be more appropriate, compare might be a more appropriate verb. I am an upper middle school person, and so it was lovely to have some elementary school people in my room helping to name that. Of course, we can exceed and go beyond that basic describe verb and get into something more rigorous, potentially rigorous in terms of analysis. But I don't know, my feedback would just be to try to use a larger variety of verbs across the board so that you're preparing students in third grade for the rigors of what historical thinking looks like in middle and high school.
Thank you so much, Becky.
Great thought, Becky. Thank you.
Any others? Sam?
We were talking to, I was actually in Becky's group.
Oh.
So we were
I didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah, that's okay. I loved it. We were working on, Civics 6B, describe ways in which families and communities in early United States history were organized to promote mutual benefit and address challenges. But down in the big idea, we wanted to also focus on not just the obstacles, but also highlighting the positive, highlighting the successes, because we want to bring positivity with difficult situations as well. So not just keeping it in the conflict realm, but also the successes realm, especially at a younger age.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for that. Anyone else? Okay.
Nicole, out of boredom, if we wait a minute, somebody will answer.
Oh, I'm just grateful. I think all of you bring so much to the table, and especially with this process, it's a very intuitive process. And as Becky mentioned, that progression, like understanding where is the through line, where do we see the standard being addressed in a different way at an earlier grade level or at a later grade level. And I think if we were to do this the way we are thinking it should be done, by unwrapping these standards and having these documents available in the file where people can go back and reference them, even if they're not in that grade band team, once we start writing the units, it is going to be extremely helpful, right? For folks to be able to see, okay, this is how grade 1 unwrap their standards, and this civic standard is directly related to this other civic standard in grade 3, and then we also see it in grade, and I'm not saying that this is true, but we also see it in grade 8. Just having that accessibility is going to be paramount for the writers. We have a hand.
Lisa's going to help us out here, Lisa.
Yes.
I know that our group talked about the idea of when we looked at, and I think it was Matt who mentioned this, trying to look at, especially at the elementary level, where things are done on a very thematic basis in terms of grouping these documents. The sample one doesn't group it this way, but the idea of grouping the standards under those big themes as a way to sort of organize where they best fit thematically might be more helpful for teachers. You know, and we also talked about the fact that, you know, the idea of the compelling question would be the big idea, and these essential questions are you know, under that umbrella to support what the big idea is. So in other words, if you want third graders to understand the concept of what is power, you know, who has power, who doesn't, do the essential questions, then build the basis or the foundation for understanding that concept or that big idea, which then they will spiral and see at different grade levels as they go through history. So that was one of the things that just looking at the sample, because you have historical concepts, you have economic concepts, you have civic components, and how do we organize that in a way that can be helpful?
Absolutely.
Lisa, in your curriculum work, does big ideas show up for the unit, for the whole course? Where, when you're talking about big ideas, where do you put them?
So when we did our curriculum process and we did UBD, we did compelling questions. I mean, we did enduring understandings, which essentially were based on those compelling questions, and those might be 1 or 2 or 3 for that particular, you know, unit. And then I would say the essential questions were really the lessons, the stage, what we call stage 3 lessons.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Lisa, you brought up a really great point, the point of understanding how to group the standards. I think with this process, that is definitely something that can be accomplished as well as a precursor to actually writing the units. When you unwrap the standards, you realize, oh, does it align with this other standard, excuse me. Some of them are grouped thematically. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And also the piece about the compelling question being the big idea. Anyone else have comments, suggestions, feedback? Okay. So this document is the hope behind this short activity was to get you all to have your fingerprints all over it and to mark it up, change it, you know, just to really mirror and emulate that collaborative process, because our hope is, I'm going to go to the next slide, that we could give you some time to collaborate with your grade level team. Now, I do recognize that this meeting is set to be over at 11:15, and we will not have the full 20 minutes. However, what I would like to do at this time is intricately put you all in your grade band teams for the standards that you were assigned to unwrap, just so that you can connect with one another. And Steve and I talked about this, as well as Malik. We wanted to also mention that now that you have access to these files, we would hope that you could, if you didn't finish here, that you would complete a graphic organizer and complete it within your team asynchronously before the end of August, before August 26th.
Nicole,
That's
don't
ambitious.
mention don't forget to mention to them that we're going to have the office hour thing for people that need
Correct.
help.
Yes. Thank you so much, Steve, for bringing that up. We are going to have office hours, the three of us, that are going to be consistent on certain days. So all throughout this process, from now until the end, we will have these office hours available for folks to check in, troubleshoot, whatever is needed. Especially for those who aren't able to make some of our meetings, it's helpful to kind of just, follow up and check in. Am I missing anything else, Steve?
At some point, they'll know when the office hours are.
Correct. So I know that for me, I agreed to, and I wrote it down here. Thursdays. I can do Thursdays 3 to 4, and I was thinking about adding Mondays as well, 3 to 4. And I know Steve has agreed to doing Wednesdays at 10:30.
I'm
correct?
doing 10:30 in the morning on Wednesdays for anybody that's interested.
And then Malik, you're doing Wednesdays 3 to 4. So we will certainly send that out in an email, and you will let us know if you would like to attend. And we will have that available to you. I'm wondering though, if I should create like a Zoom link for this, because then that way I'll figure out all the technology pieces, because I wanted it to be like a standing meeting where everybody is invited. And if you wanted to come in, you could come in if you didn't want to attend, but I'll figure that out off the record. But right now, because we only have about 13 minutes left together, I did want to strategically put you all in a breakout group with your other grade band teammates for the unwrapping of the standards, in the hope that if you did come to this meeting having prepared your own graphic organizer, you could share that with your team. And or if you didn't, perhaps you all want to talk about how you'd like to finish out that process together. So with that being said, let me go back to my rooms. This might take me a little bit of time here.
So the
So
thought, while you're doing that, Nicole,
Mhm.
so the thought from your end is by the next time that we meet, each team should have finished, each team should do a graphic organizer for their grade.
Correct. That would be helpful. And it would certainly set us up for success once we begin the actual writing process. Okay, so I have to figure out how to assign you. All right, so it is, let's see, is Kelly, do we have any K2 people here? Looking for Kelly. No. All right, 3-5. We had Erin. She was here, but no longer here. Sam is here. My apologies. This is very tedious, but I'm working on it. Sophia is not here. Jenny is here. Let's see. I don't see her here. Let's see. Sarah, Sam. So many people had issues with teams. So stuff. Melissa, Elliot, no, Laura. And another thing we talked about too, Steve, is that if we don't have a lot of folks, because I'm wondering, because a lot of people who were here, like for example, Sam I assigned her for 3 to 5, and I'm looking for Jenny, so she's here, so it's only 2 of them here today, and Melissa Elliott isn't here, so it's only going to be 2 of you in a room. So just an FYI.
Well, Sarah Atkins here.
Oh,
I'm
Sarah's
3 to
here.
5.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah.
You're
I see you
welcome.
here. Is there anybody else that's 3 to 5? That might be helpful to call it out as I create this room. I think that's it. So just Sarah, Jenny, and Sam. Okay. I'm going to select the room. I'm going to put you guys in room 1.
The question, if you look in the chat, the
There's a
questions,
question?
there's a couple, but I think maybe each group, when they meet individually, can talk about these things. Like
Absolutely.
Lisa's asking, should each group choose a specific grade level to work on? How about when we get into the chat, we can talk about those things.
In the group, yes, for sure. Okay, and so oh, it's not saving. I have to start over because it wanted to put you back in your old rooms. And I'm killing time here. So how about this? I'm having some issues with my breakout rooms. It's frozen. If you all could, if I could just try this again, but in the meantime, if you could put in the chat, like, hey, I'm 3-5 with you. I already maybe inform one another whether or not you already started a document. You can start the process of uploading the graphic organizer in the folder while I try this again. And I apologize for my technical difficulties. So, the delete. Yes, thank you. This is so helpful. And that way you all can get to know one another, know where you're at, where you stand.
And by the way, if any of the groups think that meeting with one of us would be helpful in getting you started or at some point on the way, don't hesitate to schedule that.
Yes.
That
It is
that actually might be encouraged if you have the time or the ability to do that.
absolutely. And my apologies, everyone. Teams is giving me a hard time right now with creating my rooms. And it is 11:07 and we want to be respectful of your time. Hopefully, we have a great understanding of where we are at and what the suggested expectation is moving forward before we actually meet for the next professional learning session, which would be on inquiry. Do we have any questions, concerns, comments?
I think what folks are going to have to, you know what, I think maybe, and I'm saying this off the top of my head, is maybe we should try to schedule a very brief meeting, Nicole, with each of the groups. So each group would have a little more, would have some more direction.
Absolutely. I can certainly do that to check in with all of you.
And then Liz also asked in that same email, we'll send information about the specific task, about office hours and things of that nature.
Excellent. So our next steps are going to be from our end, Steve and I and Malik as well. We'll send out an invitation or an email to those groups that were assigned to that grade band to check in with them, to meet with them, and to inform them on the task. And also, in the meanwhile, you all are going to access the folder and add your graphic organizers to the drive if you are comfortable with that.
And as everyone knows, working with technology has its advantages and its disadvantages, and we all should appreciate that.
I can definitely share the folder again, and again, we are going to be using Google Drive because the OneDrive would not allow others outside of our organization to join. So if there isn't a folder for grade 8, it was because everything was done in a rush, and I can certainly add that in there. Let me just share this with you though.
I put a folder in grade 8 already.
Okay, great. Okay.
You know, if any other 8th grade teachers like Ed has started something, just drop it in there if you don't mind sharing it with us and give us access to it. That would be great.
Wonderful.
Will do.
So this is going to be our workspace, y'all. This is going to be our hub. So feel free to, as we get into this work, customize it in a way that is appropriate for the team and organizationally helpful. Okay. So again, here are the next steps. Hopefully you have access to the shared folder. We are going to schedule a meeting with each grade band team.
And whoever can make it, I mean, if you're, hopefully a few people from each grade band can attend.
Absolutely. And if you want to, before we go, put in a chat when you are available, when you think the appropriate time would be. If you are a representative of your grade band right now in this meeting, I will definitely take a look at that and leverage that as a way to schedule our time together. We also have some professional learning sessions on the pipeline, as you are already aware. Wednesday, August 16th, we plan to have our inquiry design model professional learning session. We do not have a time for that because we wanted to ask what you all thought would be an appropriate time for that PD. So if you want to add your suggestions to the chat, we can certainly, we will certainly appreciate that.
The meeting on the we were wondering, the meeting on the 16th, I'll say is it's during the week. School hasn't started yet. It's a Tuesday morning, I believe. And would morning be acceptable? We're thinking of that day. Excuse me, August 16th is a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So we're wondering, morning would be, Becky asked for another day. We already, Becky, we'll work on that. We remember your request.
Absolutely.
Because it's important that you're there.
100%. And it's important that we make these times convenient for each and every one of you in the best way we can. Okay.
Could you share this, the next steps, or at least these dates, if you just share them with us? Because I was
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks. I will do that right now. There we go. I'm gonna put that in the chat.
How about this? I mean, again, we're doing this on the fly. How about if we moved the inquiry design professional development model to Tuesday the 15th? Does anyone that's on is that an issue for anybody? If we did it in the morning of Tuesday the 15th, does that work for everybody? Is there anyone that's an issue with? If you could just write it in.
It will be recorded and sent to us after, Steve, if we can't make it?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's my cultural week.
Yeah. There's anybody that can't make it will simply be able to email you the session.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And we can do afternoon too. It doesn't have to be in the morning. It could be, after 12. So we will definitely try to make it work.
But it seems if you're objecting, and please do, if Tuesday the 15th in the morning does not work, please write it in the chat.
Yes. Thank you so much. And as always, because we are at our time today, if you'd like to share your thoughts about how you think the session went and or additional suggestions for improvement, we would greatly appreciate it. You can email me your suggestions, comments, feedback, and we will certainly address them. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. In spite of all of the technological difficulties, I think it went well, as well as it can go. And we are certainly looking forward to seeing all of the graphic organizers in the folder, but also collaborating with you on this incredible work. Steve, did you want to add any final remarks?
Yeah, just responding to Nicole, to Sam's email. We will be mailing you out a time that for each grade level to have a brief meeting. Yes, we will send that email out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
We hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.